kind of more the Clone Wars cartoonish version, but I think the person with the sketch commission wanted more of the movie version. So it's more work for me, but it's a good challenge. And that's what I need. I need to be challenged. I need to get out of my comfort zone more often. Like, as artists, you know, like any of us who do anything, if we just stay in our comfort zone, we don't grow as much. So this will be a challenge, and hopefully we'll provide some learning and some growth. You were hoping it was Plo Koon. You just want to watch me sweat. So like some of my other drawings, once we get into the clothes, I'm going to let a lot of his shadows kind of fade into that. So that'll be part of the challenge too. And the other part is he's got little holes, for lack of a better term, but the way his face is made, these little pieces kind of come out and over the face, and so he's got these openings in here. So I have to be really careful not to accidentally fill that in with black marker or something crazy like that, because it'd be really easy for that to happen. Get confused and fill it in. But if we take our time, it should look pretty cool when it's done. And then we'll have the saber hilt over here, and the saber blade will be coming up here. So I'm just going to do a rough outline, and we can start working on some of these facial details. So I kind of want like the shadowing on his face to almost make like a mask, for lack of a better term. Like the shadow itself is going to become almost like a mask, and then we'll just see hints of the little like mechanical eye bits that he has in there, and that should make him look a little more badass. So I'll show you kind of what I'm talking about here. So the idea is going to be, he has this ton of shadow from all the wrinkles and folds in his face here. And that's going to just create a bunch of shadow kind of where his eyes and mask would be, or his little goggles. And that should make him look pretty tough customer. So while you guys are watching, what are some of your favorite either prequel characters or Clone Wars characters? I've got several requests for Ahsoka's now. That's been fun and going to be more fun. I know I've said it before, but I kind of have shied away from drawing her a lot because there's a couple of other artists who are kind of known for it. And I didn't really know if I had anything to add to that conversation, so it's actually been fun to get to draw her a couple times. I've got a couple of Princess Leia's coming up in the queue as well, so that should be quite fun. She's one of my favorite characters and another one that I don't get to really draw very often, so hopefully that'll be a good time. So hopefully you can start to see what I'm saying about using like shadow to define a little bit more of him than just like lines, because he's got so many folds and wrinkles that I think the more just lines that we use, the harder it'll be to tell what's going on. So the more we can do with light and shadow value will really make a difference. And so I'll probably do quite a bit of shading with the pencil here, and then we can go in with some markers and pens and touch it up as needed. But I want to definitely like just kind of rough in all these really dark shadow areas first, so that as we go back and add in those wrinkles and folds, it all makes sense. Because it would definitely be easy to get like visually lost with this character. I mean, I guess unless you've drawn him like a bunch of times, but I definitely have not. Today's sparkling water is Raz Cranberry. Yummy yum. Since I'm either sitting here drawing or sitting on my iPad or computer drawing, I try to stay away from the like sugary drinks and stuff, you know. Keep it down to just the sparkling waters when I can. Or just like iced tea or something, but sometimes you just gotta have the bubbles, you know what I'm saying? I just crave it. I'm sure a lot of it depends on how you grew up. I grew up in a house where there was tons of soda, so as an adult, trying to break that habit has definitely been a challenge. I might go for like 2 or 3 years without having a real soda and then just like binge. It's kind of sad. So a lot of this pencil shading will get covered back up with marker probably, but I think it'll be worth it just so we know what's going on. But mostly in here is all I'm worried about. We can, some of this around the periphery, once we get our pen out, we can take care of some of that. You know, I just want to keep him looking just as kind of organic and natural as possible, you know. That's really the goal. That's what I'm going for. I mean, if you guys know, you know my art by now. That's what it's about. It's just trying to be like bold and graphic and iconic and decisive and keep everything as handcrafted as possible and organic as possible. So I have to be careful in here. We're going to have some little reversed outlines to indicate some of his mask apparatus. So I have to be careful not to fill those in with black. Otherwise we'll have to go back with the white and touch up, which works, but it's always best to just do it right the first time and not have to go back and revisit. We get to the center portion of his mask. He's got this, like, it's almost like a mesh in here. But I really want it to be sort of darker on the left side than on the right. So we'll try to use our pins to make that work as well. Bring in some extra shading and stuff to kind of sell that look a little bit. Like I always say, so much of what we're going for here is not photorealism, but just believability. You know, does it look believable is way more important than does it look realistic. At least in my book. So like all this area that I'm outlining, we're just going to take this gray out there. So I'll probably not do as much shading. We'll just do it with the pins and markers. But especially around the face, I wanted to make 100% positive that I didn't confuse myself with all these lines and folds and wrinkles and things. Because it certainly would be easy to do. To just really trip up there. Because there's just so much going on with this guy. So he's got some more little detail bits kind of over here. So if we treat some of these as like little reversed out lines, once we get our black shading in there, it'll look really nice. So we get the little, just these little pops of white, and those kind of tell our brain what's going on with the character. Give a bunch more shadow here, because this is sort of like the underside of, like, you know, his ear things here. You'll see I just used lots of arcs, little semicircles, just to keep everything looking, like I said, hopefully organic and natural. That's kind of what it's about, especially a character like this. All these folds and wrinkles, you just want them to look very smooth and flowing versus kind of like artificial. And then once we get down to the cloak here, his Jedi robes, I want to do like a reversed outline here to sort of indicate kind of a separation between the chest panel where it's kind of V-shaped in there, and then maybe we'll do like a medium reversed outline just to help reinforce where some of the folds in the fabric are. And once it's all shaded in, I think that'll look pretty cool. So something along those lines. Yeah. So that's kind of the really rough idea of the areas where I think we're going to go with some darker values. We'll probably go with like we may just use black. We'll see how it goes. All right, so let's get out our trusty brush pen and see what we can do here. Yeah, I agree with you on that, Decidius, is that, I mean, as any artist who works on a licensed property, whether it's a genius like Drew Struzan or someone like myself, you know, we're all using the photo reference, especially on the official projects where sometimes it's even provided to us. They say, hey, make it look like this. But I feel like the more we can keep things handcrafted, the better. You know, I think fans and collectors have seen a lot of the photography and stuff before, and where you see it over and over again on package design or t-shirts or whatever it is. And so as an artist, even if you're using that photo reference to look at, or to try to get the character details correct, or the expression on the face correct, you know, those kind of things, just to get it all right, the more you can add either like a visual style or flair or your own unique touches to that, then the better it is. Because, you know, if people wanted to collect a photograph, they would just go buy the photograph, you know, and that's fine. There's plenty of people who do, but when it comes to art, I find it more fun, even if I'm using that as a starting point, to try to make it my own in some way, or alter it up, or even better, just imagine, you know, a scene from a film, like what would happen between two scenes or something like that, you know. Because a character like this, I mean, there's no way I can draw this crazy guy from memory. I definitely looked at a ton of pictures of him, and but I'm still trying to do my best to make it my own version of it. Sometimes easier said than done, but you know, that's one of the reasons I'm doing these sketches, is I'd like to see my own talent and ability grow a little bit, and it'd be nice to feel like I could bring the visual style that I've created on my illustrations a little bit more to these drawings, you know, so that if I'm jumping back and forth between The Lion King and Star Wars, I start to have some sort of like visual continuity between the two. And sure, one's a cartoon and one's based on reality, but you know, I think if I can grow and stretch my legs a little, or stretch whatever, creativity, whatever you want to call it, a little bit, that would be the area I'd like to see push myself a little bit. And I don't know if it's too much to ask for or not, but you know, I think as creative people, we all have goals, and we're trying not to be complacent. I always thought, like, well, if I was in love with some piece of art that I did years ago, then all that would mean is that I haven't been critical enough of myself and haven't been growing. So that's another reason I just try to create as often as I can, all the time, because every illustration is another learning experience, another chance to make a mistake and learn from that mistake. And I figure the more of these drawings I do, hopefully the better I'll get. I have to be careful not to draw myself into a corner here. I'm trying to decide, well, we might fill in all these shadows and then go back and do the periphery. It's a little different than I normally do it, but this whole drawing is a little different, so. Some of this will be, it's almost like working backwards in a way. He's such a fun combination of like organic and inorganic shapes, you know. It's kind of bizarre. So let's outline this little piece here. So I was thinking for this face grading was maybe to go in with some like really thin lines. But then to make it feel heavier, start to like blot them in halfway through. See if that works. So that by the time we get over to the left, there's like a bunch of shadow. I think that might just work. Yeah, that's kind of cool. If I'm not talking as much, this takes a little bit of concentration, but once we get into the shading, I'll relax a little bit. So here we just want like a super dainty line, and then we can go heavier there. Something like that. Hopefully you can start to imagine how this might look once we start getting some of these shadows in here. But like I said, this guy's going to take a little bit of time. And the trick for me is to not get anxious and not get in a hurry and try to rush it. Because if I do, that's when the mistakes will happen. I think I mentioned Friday that I've got another one that's more challenging than this in some ways, I guess. It's Luke and Yoda in one of the Dagobah trees, and I had started on it and wasn't really happy with the way it was going and tossed it aside, so I started working it out again today. So we'll see if I bring that one on the channel or not. We talked about maybe doing it in pieces or something, so we'll see. But the good news is I think it's going to work out now that I've restarted it. I just had to sort of think about it in a different way. And that happens sometimes. Sometimes you think you have an idea of how to approach a subject or a request, and just sometimes that it doesn't work out. You think, okay, well now what am I going to do? How am I going to make this work for them? So that I'm happy and they're happy when it's all done. So a little unorthodox today compared to some of the sketches we've done, but I think once we fill in some of these shadows, I think it'll start to come to life a little bit. That's the hope anyway. So we shall see. I saw Cartoon Rick was on here for a little while and said he was having some trouble with his internet connection. You guys let me know how the internet's been for you during this time and how the streams are working for you. Hopefully it's streaming pretty well. I think the only day we had trouble was my wife had a bunch of conference meetings for her school and I was streaming and we had a little camera glitch one time. And another time I just had to delay because I couldn't do anything while she was on one of these meetings she was having. But luckily there's enough hours in the day to make it all work. Oh, thanks for letting me know the streams are good. I think this gives us a starting point. I kind of want to outline the whole thing, but I'm afraid we'll get smudgy. So let's do some fill-ins first. I'll just fan this just a little bit. This may be less entertaining than some we've done, because I'm not going to rush it, but hopefully be worth the wait. Or at least it'll look crazy when it's done. All right, so we're going to jump on with the black. Just start to fill some of this in. And for anybody who ordered a sketch, I shipped the first wave out on Friday, and then right now I'm waiting on USPS to give me some more shipping supplies. But as soon as that stuff comes, I'll be able to get the next batch out along with whatever I finish this week. I guess I need to order some more sketch supplies too, because I'm running out of that stuff fast. I think when we started I had a couple of almost full sketch pads of this nice Bristol paper, and I look today and I'm down to just a couple of sheets. So I think I've been drawing more the last couple of weeks than I would normally at like a year's worth of conventions, you know. Sort of crazy. But these are crazy times. Everyone keeps saying they want to get back to normal. I don't even know what normal is going to be. I'm kind of a ton of detail. Yeah, there is. You know, for me, I at least work from home enough that this wasn't, I mean, it's definitely been life-changing, but not the way it has been for some other people. And I feel so sorry for my wife, who normally plays like tennis 4 nights a week and teaches class and live and in person, and now she's having to do it remotely, and it's definitely major changes for a lot of people. For me, the biggest change has just been the lack of email with all the publishers closed. I'm used to being interrupted several times an hour with, you know, where's this project at, or do you want to work on a different project? And it's pretty much just radio silence right now. But that gives me more time to hang out with you guys and have some fun drawings. Yeah, this is going to turn out good, I think. I think the trick will just be to stick to our guns and not get in a hurry. If we can get the black areas worked out, then it should be fun to be able to get in there and start doing some marker shading. Because with all these folds and wrinkles and stuff, you know, it's going to look pretty crazy. If we do ever have a Comic-Con again, this would be one I don't know that I'd want to do live, because it's just so time consuming and so many places to make mistakes. One of the sketches I have coming up is a Princess Bride. And that's another one that'll be a little challenging, just because, you know, unlike Star Wars and Disney, where there's just so much reference and media and things to look at, there's not much for that. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun, but getting good reference images of the characters, it's not just the same old thing. It's been a little challenging, but it'll be fun. But I'm really excited about a couple of these Princess Leia ones coming up, just because the people who asked for them had some interesting choices of what they wanted, and so that'll make it more fun. I mean, she's always fun to draw, but it's nice when people give you, oh, not challenges, but interesting requests. All right. I think we're kind of out of the danger zone there. Oh yeah, so you can really see what I was talking about, like trying to keep all the shadow around his face so it's almost like a mask on his eyes, and I think that's going to look cool. Especially once we work some grays in there. Should just start looking better and better. I'll tell you, one of the drawings I had fun with this last week was that Hera drawing from Rebels. I think that might have been the first time, or, well, no, I had drawn her on some sketch cards, but it was the first time I had drawn her as like a sketch commission. And that was kind of a blast. I really, really enjoyed that one. Just such a good character design. You know, some things are just so well done that it makes them more fun to work on. So I'm sure you can think there's plenty of characters or movies or film or cartoons that you might like, that if you had to like draw them might not be fun. So it's kind of nice when you have something that you like and is fun. It like ticks all the boxes, you know. I'm really happy with this new set of markers, that it it came with all the shades of gray plus 3 black markers, because I usually run out the black so fast. So it was nice to have that little surprise. I've often joked about getting the big giant shipping marker to fill in the black, but I think the fumes would just knock me out. You guys would be watching and I would just like pass out. At least be entertaining. Another good thing about doing these live streams is, you know, if I'm just doing a drawing by myself, there's always a temptation to take a break or check my email or look at Instagram or Facebook or something. And this is nice if we're together. You know, I want to entertain you, so I'm going to stick it out to the end. So it's good for both of us. Well, this one will definitely be getting the signature in white ink since there's so much black on here. I can tell you that right now. All right. So I think that's most of our main shadow areas. We'll have a few down here on the lightsaber to deal with. You can hit those with the brush pen while we're waiting on some of that to dry. Kind of want there to be these like thick, thin guys like that. Yeah, something like that. All right. I think we'll see, but I think that's most of our black area. So I think we'll just go in with some grays and start working in our values now. He's already starting to look pretty tough. So let's start with like a pretty dark value. Maybe like a 50%, maybe even a 60% gray. Let's see what those look like next to this black. So there's 50 and 60. Yeah, I think 50 is going to be the way to go. 60 is just a little too close to the same value as the black. So I'm going to take this and just start working some of this detail in. Again, you'll see me using lots of arcing shapes. And that's really helps it look organic and natural. So lots of little semicircles. As always, the temptation on some of this stuff is to rush. But because we're making decisions and experimenting and seeing what works and what doesn't, you just want to take your time. Let it happen. So I'm just looking to see how those values are going to work together, and I think it's going to work okay. So I can just use this marker to just start to work out some of these details. You can see the light's going to be really strong on the right side, and we'll have more shadow on the left side. And that'll be what helps define his form and shape. Because if we lit him straight on like there was just like a light bulb on his face, it would look pretty boring. And if we're going to go to all the time and effort to draw this, we definitely don't want it to look boring. So again, just lots of semicircles. Trying to avoid any straight lines. So we can see that's starting to work. Don't want to get too scratchy and too sloppy in there, but just to give a hint of where the light and the shadow might be. Again, I have to watch out for these areas where there's little openings, so that I make sure that the parts I want to be highlights are highlights, and the parts that are open to the background work right. Otherwise, it'll start looking a little goofy, and we certainly don't want that. Yeah, I think that's starting to work out. So since this part of the mask is like mechanical, we might come back with just a little bit of a darker value so that it's not exactly the same as what we're using everywhere else. So might as well just go ahead and finish off all the areas that are his skin. Again, he's got so many little creases and folds that some of it can just be like gestural, just to hint at what's going on. Sometimes that, it works better than trying to be super intricate. We definitely want a lot of shadow on this sort of inside portion of the ear, so that it becomes really evident that there's separation between kind of the forward face part and the ear part, or what I'm calling the ear. And again, I'm just trying to stay away from, harsh straight lines, and just keep everything like flowing as good as possible. That's definitely the real trick. Like a stormtrooper, it's all kind of like smooth lines, harsh, hard lines. In here, everything's kind of like squiggles and organics. So just a little different. I kind of want to just try to keep this flowing if I can. We've got all these little areas that just hint at detail. Sometimes you just need just a few little marker strokes or brush strokes to give that implication. right. So let's go in. Once we get all the organic bits done here, we'll go in and hit some of this more mechanical bit of his mask with a darker value. And that should start to look pretty cool. Alright, so that was the 50% gray, so I think we'll go in maybe just a shade or two darker on this mask, so 60 or 70. We know if we go too dark, there won't be any contrast. So we'll start with the 60 and just see how that looks. So hopefully that'll start to define the shape of this mask a little bit. We can see it sort of covers up the part of him that we would assume is his mouth. Hopefully make that mesh area look a little nicer too. And I just want the highlight to sort of like flow down the shape. So we can do that. Just little organics like that. Maybe just a hint of shadow here. Yeah, I think that's coming along. So while we have that value out, I think we can use it on parts of his cloak as well. And maybe, just maybe, let's come around here on the ear and just hit this line with that darker value. Yeah, that looks good. So I'm thinking just some of these little open areas on the cloak. I'll hit with this darker value. And that way they'll be visible, but they won't be super bright. And so this is the, we say this is the 60. So I want to do this part of his cloak not as dark as this black, but fairly darkish. So we could go maybe one darker to the 70 for that. Yeah, that should work good. So I think we'll just kind of put some squiggles in here. And that'll just start to define like the fabric for like the collar. So that kind of is going to come through here. But that way he's got a little bit of a shadow underneath of his face, but it's a little bit lighter than the black value, so we get a little bit of a break. Something like that. Oh, thank you, Evan. Appreciate it. This one, it's a little more complicated, so I'm definitely taking my time. I appreciate the feedback. little shadow here. And then maybe something along here. This could come in like that. So Evan, well, now that you've joined us, did you have any virtual holiday over the weekend? Do you participate in any of that? Maybe just a hint along here. And I think maybe we want to go under the collar here with some shadow. Keep that pretty simple. All right, so something like that. This guy's really starting to come together now. Okay, so that was 70. So let's go, I think, significantly lighter here. So maybe like 40%. See how that works. And so same kind of thing. We'll just kind of build on what we had here before. And I might take this light value and hit some of these little semi-in shadow details on the mask here so they're not quite so bright. Just cleaning off the tip if I pick up any black. Something like that. All right, so that's 40. So let's take our 20. Just give that a bit of love. Just so it's not pure white. Just come in on some of these details and just barely beef them up with this 20%. Keep things from looking too flat over here where all the highlights are. Just a bit more depth and dimension. Maybe even where the outline of the character is, just hit it a little bit with this 20 just to give it some shape. Yes, Evan, definitely reference for this one. I said earlier before you got here that you know, part of my goal is to keep it believable but not photorealistic. And so a character like this, I mean, yeah, I looked at 5 or 6 photos of the character before I did my blue line sketch, and my blue line sketch was much more detailed than normal because there's just so much to be confused about in here. So hopefully it stays true to the character, but also, you know, still has my style and has that handcrafted nature to it. That's kind of what I'm always striving for, at least. All right, I think we're getting close. I'll give you guys a second to look at this and see if you see anything that I've missed or that needs touch-ups here. And then, as always, I'll have to pull out a color pencil to do the lightsaber. If I knew the color of his saber, I could probably find the right pencil for it, but I have to look. Let me see here. Does he have a blue lightsaber, I think? Yes, he's got a blue lightsaber. Okay. Well, that'll be easy enough. All right, I'm going to grab a blue pencil and we'll do this lightsaber. So I have 2 different shades of blue here. The one I use to draw with and a lighter one. So between the 2, should be able to make a pretty good looking lightsaber, hopefully. Yeah, I think that looks pretty cool. All right. So there we go. Plo Koon, Jedi Master. Oh, see, I see something I missed, guys. It always happens. It always happens. That's how it works. Just about the time you think you have something done, that's when it jumps out at you. Like, oh, I really need to do this. Okay. I think we're all good. So this one just needs a signature. All right. So I'm sad to say there's only 2 today, so I have a bunch more sketches in the works, but we only had 2 for today. So the warm-up sketch today was Rafiki from The Lion King, so that was a lot of fun. And then the main sketch for today was Jedi Master Plo Koon. So, and this is obviously the movie version, not the animated version. Really appreciate everyone hanging out today. Definitely have more coming this week, so just pay attention to Facebook and Instagram, and I always shout out right before I go live. Thanks again, and you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.